Good morning. Good morning. My name is Toyin Umesiri, and I'm your host for today. May I ask that you please move, those at the back move forward. This table is a special table for you. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited and that you all made it here. We actually had a lot more sign up. We tried to be conservative, so I think a few more people will join us, but I am super excited for this crowd. We actually pulled this off in like 30 days, so this is like awesome. Chicago effect, right? Wow. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Please. This is a special table. Let's fill it up, okay? Please. I'll wait. They're keeping us. You can.
Oh, come on.
This table is for you. It's the special table. No, I'm not starting without you. Yeah, I know you came first and you get to sit on the special table.
We want to stay near the cookies.
Oh, come on. No. Thank you so much. Thank you again. I've been around, connecting with everybody in the room, and I really feel like I'm among friends. So I'm actually going to be a little bit less formal with my presentation today. After talking to each person, Shakira, you made it. Please, South Africa Trade Commissioner, South Africa Consulate Chicago, please give her a round of applause. Thank you. We kind of go a little bit way back a little bit, right? I just moved here from Arkansas, and I didn't know I was going to move to Chicago. We held trade events in Arkansas, and that's a region under Shakira's leadership. And she actually flew from Chicago to Arkansas, and she spoke about South Africa in Arkansas. And then I was like, oh, just so you know, I'm also coming to meet you in Chicago. I'll be moving here. And she was like, awesome. So thank you for being here. So I feel a few people know me in the room, but I'll try and reintroduce myself. So Toyin Umesiri, I'm the CEO of Nazaru LLC, and I'm also the convener of the Trade with Africa Business Summit, which is a global conversation of bringing stakeholders together to accelerate and increase trade with Africa, global trade with Africa. Today's event is such a delight to me because I'm actually partnering with the Africa Export-Import Bank, which is probably one of the largest banks, and they're really focused on driving import and export and trade. We're partnering with them to put this together. They are key sponsors, and I'm so excited to bring their message to you, and also dialogue and talk about what's next. So they bring special greetings. Dr. Roma, who is the president of the Africa Export-Import Bank, is leading an incredible conversation on the continent and beyond. And one of the things that, for me, I have a background in business, right? So if you read up some of my stories out there, but all I know is business. And what I've found out is that when we talk about the emergence of Africa, or Africa being the next thing, I strongly believe that the business community must lead for us to actually actualize those visions. The business community must lead Africa, and that's why the work that the Africa Export-Import Bank is doing, and as I'll share today, is absolutely incredible, visionary, and we're encouraging everybody to be a part of this move to transform Africa. Mrs. Kanayo Awani is the Managing Director for Intra-Africa Trade Initiatives. So this IATF initiative sits right on our desk. She has ownership of this global event. So Intra-Africa Trade Fair 2018 will be held in Egypt, but I actually want to put it in context. It's not just an event. So what I'll try to do is explain why it is different and why it's actually a movement to transform Africa. One of the things they both wanted to do, they both wanted to be here, but last minute, that was a few weeks ago during the United Nations General Assembly, we had originally planned on having this event and they were going to fly here, but then there wasn't enough time to get the word out there, so I had to shift it, and I said, you know what, we'll do this with or without you. But I asked them, just the last few days, could we just scramble and send a key message just so everybody in Chicago feel the love? So I'm going to apologize a little bit. It's my fault. We scrambled a little bit for the next video, which is a key message from Mrs. Awani, directed to us.
On behalf of the Board of Directors and Management of the African Export-Import Bank, I would like to thank Nazaru for hosting this event, as well as the business community of Chicago for gracing the occasion. This occasion is to introduce the inaugural Intra-African Trade Fair that is being convened by the Afrexim Bank together with the African Union Commission and being hosted by the Arab Republic of Egypt in Cairo in December between the 11th and 17th of 2018. Bear in mind that the recently launched agreement on the African Continental Free Trade Area creates a single market of 1.3 billion people, as well as involves a collective GDP of over $3 trillion US. As much as this is an Intra-African trade fair, we all understand that Africa will have to depend on non-African countries for investments in capital goods, but as well as services. We're hoping that the business community represented in this event today will take advantage of this opportunity to be with us in Cairo, to exhibit and showcase their goods, not just tangible goods, but also investments as well as services that they have to offer. We do hope to see you in December and hoping that you'll take advantage of this unique opportunity in Africa. Thank you very much.
Wow, so, the leadership of Africa, they actually know we're here today. They're actually sending a message into the African Union as well about what we're doing here today. So, thank you for being here. I'm super excited. And one of the things I do want to, as a groundwork, lay a foundation is, how many people are familiar with the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that was just signed this year? Okay, good. So when it comes to investing in Africa, one of the things I try to say is it's like a soccer game. Some people are already playing the game. They're on the field. They're kicking the balls. They may not be showing us the score, but they're in. We have people watching the game, right? People that say, wow, I see, right? I see what's going on. I'm reading all those reports about investments and growth. But they're just watching, right? And then there are people that are not even on the field. They're not even in the arena. They don't know the game is happening. they don't know what's going on. But so I do recognize that in this room, we have a diverse stakeholder right? If a very diverse group here, some may already be an active investor with years, of experience investing in Africa. Some may be wanting to lean in, but not knowing where to start or which country or how to go about it. And some, may just have seen the announcement and go, what's that? So I do recognize that, but one of the key things that is happening right now as a result of, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is, before this year, when you look at Africa, people do say Africa as if it's one country, but we do know 54, sometimes people say 55 countries. And if you wanted to invest, there's so much complexity to knowing where do you focus on. But with the Continental Free Trade Agreement, the leadership of the African Union have actually now come together to say, how do we connect the dots? How do we all trade with one another? And there are some statistics we have in the presentation. So with this signing, it creates a new conversation to say, wow, even if you're investing in one country, say South Africa, you need to start thinking beyond South Africa. How do you now serve neighboring countries beyond South Africa? So that's what this opens up, the opportunity for investors to look at the entire market versus regional market or just one country. So March of 2018 was when the leaders came together to sign the Continental Free Trade Agreement. And right there at that event, the president of Africa Export-Import Bank with the commissioner for trade of the African Union, they both launched the IATF. So this event that we're talking about was actually launched to say, we the bank, we want to support this movement, because when it comes to policy, you can have a policy on paper, but if you don't have financing backing and all of the processes in place, it sits on paper. And I'll give you an example. How many people are familiar with AGOA? Okay. For 18 years, AGOA is probably one of the most favorable trade policies I've seen. In 2000, the United States signed with the regions of Africa, if they're in good standing, to say you can bring in certain items into the US duty-free. And it's existed on the books for 18 years. 18. It was signed into law by President Clinton. It was renewed by President Bush. It was extended to 2025 by President Obama. The clock is ticking. But guess what? The business community, so in Washington, D.C., people that know AGOA would say, why has AGOA not benefited Nigeria or Ghana? We've not maximized it. But what I have found, and I can give you real examples, is that the business communities, the buyers, so this is a policy on paper that says buyers can buy duty-free, and it was put in place because a lot of the African countries cannot compete with Asia. So tariff-free should help you, right? But I'm going to generalize now. The buyers do not know. The people that are, exporting, they're hoping for somebody to receive it, but they are not using it. And I'll tell you my own personal experience is that I've gone to some of the government agencies, I won't name names, and I'm saying, I want to use agro, and they're like, it doesn't exist. I'm like, textile, it does. It's like, no, I'm going to tell us our job. I'm like, let me pull up the internet. This is a US policy since 2000. This is what I'm going to use. And they were like, So I'm making them walk through that process as we speak right now, because we can all talk in theoretical terms, but the business community must lift these laws off the paper, literally, and bring it to bear and execute on it. So for me, being a part of this, it's not just, yes, this is happening, but we in the business community needs to say, what does it mean to us? What does it mean to my business? How can I be a part of this? And we've got to engage. And I know there are a couple of people that are already engaged. So that's my charge today. If there's one thing I want you to walk out of this room is Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. What does it mean to me? What are the opportunities? How do I go? How do I engage? Because if the business community does not engage, it's going to be another AGUA. And I don't want that to be the case. So, we also have a video now of Honorable Albert Muchanga, who is the Commissioner for Trade and Industry of the African Union. I'm assuming we all know what the African Union, European Union, right? Okay, awesome. So let me play that.
Following the establishment of the African Free Trade area in Kigali on the 21st March this year, we decided that we will not wait for ratification. We shall make a quick delivery on the Intra-African Trade Fair.
So this is a very, very bold move, I must say, is the fact that Africa is saying we want to trade with one another. And, like I said, we also want to say, what does it mean to us? So in numbers, comparing with other unions, the total trade, when you look at Africa's trade with the rest of the world, sits at 15 to 18% that Africa actually trades with itself. So what we're saying is Ghana to Nigeria, movement of goods and services on the continent sits at 15 to 18%. When we compare that to Europe, 59%, North America, so NAFTA, Canada, and then Mexico, right, 37%, Asia, 51%. So the leadership of the African Union is saying, we want to grow that number. And we recognize that we're not going to grow that number if we do not have the right investment, the right processes, in place. And the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, if you're able to get your hands on it and read it, it's a lot of pages. But what you find is that they've actually put together a governing structure that includes all the ministers, right? All the ministers would then form a commission. All the heads of states would form, the board, the leadership team. And so this is going to be, I really am excited because it's set up to be successful and we need to be a part of this. So that's really a big deal. And then what does it mean? We're going to show another video, and this is the president of the bank really passionately talking about why we need to move forward and the support they are offering.
Today, Africa is able to trade $1 trillion about. So the infrastructure available in Africa can carry $1 trillion of trade. The question is, why is Africa's share of that $1 trillion just 15 or 17%? Why is it not 40%? It is because the seller or the buyer in Nigeria does not know that he could buy polish from Kenya. The leather worker in Kenya does not know that the raw leather he needs is being exported by Burundi. So we need to have this information. When we create it, that will add significant volumes to intra-African trade.
Okay, so just again to bring it home, so I actually run another event as well, annual event, we'll be bringing to Chicago next year, that talks about trade with Africa. This conversation is saying, yes, Africa is trading with the world, but with the size of the continent itself, within the continent, how do we increase border transactions? And we can actually learn from South Africa because of that 15 to 18%, if you were to remove South Africa's trade with its neighboring countries, the number drops to 6%. Okay? Right? So, South Africa, for so many years, have always been kind of a gateway to Africa. They've positioned themselves, they've been successful at it. But we need to take it beyond. Just we can learn, we definitely need to learn what are they doing to promote South Africa and to also expand their businesses, multinationals going into South Africa. But why not Ghana? Why not Nigeria? All of that. So this is why we need to think broadly about the continent and also learn from the various regions. So African Export-Import Bank, for those people that buy and sell. When I say buy and, when we talk about trade, it sounds exotic, but it's really buying and selling, right? At the end of the day. It's really, I mean, from the beginning of mankind, it's all about exchanging goods and services. And how can we, ease that process? Is anybody, if you're part of that framework right now, could you just indicate buying and selling, global trade right now? Yes, okay. So people in that world, you all know how important information is, right? Information, letter of credit, all of these instruments that would help make your life, easy, better in the process. But what African Bank is doing is saying, we want to provide a supporting structure to the African Union to make it a reality, right? And in 2017, they actually established a 5-year strategic plan called Impact 2021 Africa Transformed. And a key part of the agenda is to increase intra-Africa trade. So this is like a big push for them. And one of the things they are also as part of the strategy is to finance $90 billion of global trade, where 25 billion of that, over that 5-year period, is focused on intra-African trade. So as part of this trade fair, as we'll see, if you're there, they're also saying if you want to trade and you find a trading partner, you don't have to worry about financing. We actually want you to trade. We want to help you close that deal. And when you look at this number, it sounds, whoa, right? But for context, 2017, I believe, they did about $8 billion financing. About 50% of that sits in Nigeria, which is the largest economy. So they have 3 offices on the continent. But so if they want to increase that, but if you were to do that, multiply over 5 years, this is somehow a conservative figure as well. So any questions? Again, I'm going to make this a little bit less formal because I've spoken to one-on-one. I've spoken to people one-on-one in the room. I feel very homely, right? Like among friends. So any reactions right now? Nigeria. So at the signing in March, we had 44 come on board immediately, and you saw that picture. And since March and now, I believe maybe 4 more. South Africa also signed in. There was a news this week that the president of Nigeria actually formed a task force to do more due diligence. Given the size of the market, he said they did not just want to sign, they want to really understand what the implications are to Nigeria. Because what it really means is, with all of the activities happening in Nigeria, with Asia, all of a sudden Ethiopia cannot get a piece of that. Kenya cannot get a piece of that. So they really have to look at it, meaning how easy can Ethiopia sell into Nigeria and vice versa. So those conversations are happening right now. Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. First one is the African Bank and all of these things, and the exchange rate challenge that a lot of the African countries face. So take $1,000 for And in terms of like concerning it, maybe they see the drops off and suddenly you literally cannot pay that. So are there products that the African Bank is putting in place just to protect companies that want to like invest in those companies that have extremely challenges in how to secure that, how to mitigate that risk? And the second question is on standardization. So if you're looking at the intra-African trade, is it going to put in place things that ensure that if I order something from a different country, that is the product that I then see, and I don't get something substandard or totally different, are they challenging companies to sign on and, plus make sure that they're
Right. Yeah, the second question you have is easier. Yes. But it's going to evolve, right? As you know more, you're going to refine that. So standardization is one of the focus areas. The first question, one of the things I'll do is also take note back to and give them feedback. But I suspect, yes, they will have a program. Here's why. Because OPIC, Overseas Private Investment Corporation of the US, they actually have an insurance you buy to cover things like that. And OPIC, I might be putting some information out there, but OPIC actually this year, they launched a new initiative called Connect Africa. And what it is they're raising $1 billion. I have contacted, so they sent me the information. It's $1 billion to finance logistics, transportation, ITC, all of that. So OPIC is a US kind of equivalent because it's funded by US taxpayers, but it operates as a bank, but their focus is development. So they do not compete with Exim Bank, really. So development focused, US businesses that want to expand into other regions from a development standpoint. So check that out. Connect Africa, OPIC, $1 billion that they're putting out there to finance. So things are happening. So yes, I suspect they will. I mean, this is something that, with Nigeria particularly over the last couple of years, I suspect they will have some instruments to support and, maybe enjoy the risks. There are risk actions associated with business, right? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question, and I'm hearing you for the first time. As a new business African business owner, and we've been importing some goods to the Cameroon area, and we've been struggling a lot, especially with the customs and trying to deal with importing and actually importing the right stuff from Vietnam and Nigeria to stay there. Is there any training for the newcomers? I mean, we're fairly new. We don't know what we are doing, so we kind of learn from our own experience. So, do you have any guidelines or something?
Unfortunately, that's why I'm in business. Because, so my background, I worked on the back end side, global trade, all of that. And exactly what I saw was that the information within that world is not readily available, especially when it comes to trade with Africa. NAFTA, yes, you're going to see all information out there, but Africa in particular, what I found is where do you go for information? It's like it doesn't exist. Even there's some context of global trade where it's like Africa. When I show up, it's like nobody's talking about Africa. And that's one of the reasons that we're having this year. That's one of the reasons we're having the Trade with Africa, is to bring those conversations forward. And I've also begun some conversations with the bank to say standardize. How do we train the exporters? There are several things I've embarked on to do, and I then realized, this is bigger, right? We need strategic partners. We need the leaders of Africa to be behind this. So yes, we're missing that. Yes, we can help. Yes, we need to standardize training. Yes, we need to all stay informed. Yes, we need to support each other. I wish I could just point you more place, but that's why we're here.
Just want to make on what she asked for, some banks, they do local currency. But land is one of those things. People have to decide more and see what is possible. And what she's asking for, there are a lot of business in kind of that we have. If it's going to be working from Asia and all kind of things, the same way apply back. If you understand, you just have to let it go. There's abundant information.
Awesome. So we'll definitely partner there and see what this existing information, maybe what we have to do is promote it. What I've realized is we could have the best solution in the world, but if we do not market it, and if we do not bring it to the attention of the right people, it sits and collects dust. So maybe, right, we have some information somewhere. How do we dig it out and find it? Talking about local currency, this year, I believe UK and Nigeria also signed a deal where if you wanted to buy, like if you're a manufacturer in Nigeria and you wanted to buy equipment coming out of UK, they've actually signed a deal where local currency swap is now happening. So for us in America, right, and China, right. So now if just imagine I'm running a factory in Nigeria, all of a sudden, right, maybe US becomes less and less competitive for me to trade with. Something to think about there. It's just something for us to watch out for. So, thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on. Wow. I don't want to hold you too much away from your lunch, but so as part of Impact 2021, we have also the Intra-African trade strategies particularly, and I want to walk us through some of the content of that. Before we do that, this is a definition. When you say intra-Africa trade, they've actually come up with this definition from the context of the bank and the African Union. Personally, I would like to see a little bit of adjustment to kind of infuse the global investors, kind of what's their role in driving this, but as it sits right now, it's really goods and services between and among African countries. They've also included the diaspora, I believe, yes. So even though it's not on the continent, if you're in the diaspora and you're trading with the continent, they are putting it under this bracket as intra-Africa trade. So it's technicalities, right? But for me, the broader the better. I don't think we want to exclude. We need everybody that wants to really engage. How do we bring them on board? So for me personally, that's my own personal view. So just to ground again, intra-Africa trade as this specific definition, and everything, the strategy is built around this definition. So what they've also done is created 4 pillars of growth for the intra-Africa strategy, and I love this. This is the most important slide. Of everything I'm showing, this is the most important slide. What it talks about is they want to finance and increase creation of goods and services on the continent, productivity, right? When you look at the real numbers, actual numbers of trade, what you quickly find, and I've dug through that, especially 2016, is that raw goods come out of the continent, but not finished goods. Okay, extractive resources. So today's trade is really extractive. And I'll give you an example, cashew. We all here are probably eating cashew from West Africa, but we do not know because it's exported raw into Southeast Asia before coming to the United States. On and on. And West Africa produces about 40% of the cashew in the world. Yeah, ouch. So, how do we produce? How do we finance produce? Where locally. Earlier in the year, I was a keynote speaker at Oli Business School in Umesiri, and they have some active projects in Africa, in Nigeria particularly. And one of the things their MBA project leader said, and he was supposed to be here, but anyway, what he said was they took a processed cashew to the farm in Africa, okay, and they showed them the processed cashew in the bottle. And they said, where do you think this cashew came from? And they were like, wow. And the person said, do you know it could have come from your farm? This cashew could have been, it could have been grown right here in this farm. So one of the things is, how do we put a production plant right there at the farm? So these are the opportunities, right? Is to say the global market would reward you for finished goods, right? Versus extractive resources. Extractive resources actually growing somebody else's economy. It's powering America, Asia, the rest of the world, when you look at the real numbers. But now, how do we get that to power Africa? The resources there. So the bank is ready to see projects really about capacity building. We have the workforce. Right now, Africa sits at 1.1 billion. By 2050, at the event we actually had the chief economist for Africa for the World Bank present to us their projection. By 2050, Africa is going to have a quarter of the population of the world. It's going to grow to 2.2 billion, while the rest of the world is shrinking. Africa is rapidly growing. It's going to have a young youth workforce. Nigeria in particular by 2050 is going to be the third largest nation in the world, next to China and India. Yeah, so why are we not watching this? So this is the data that we have, that we're saying Africa is the future. In 1980, the continent had about, I think, 500 million people. Just about 40 years later, it's doubled to 1.1 billion. So that projection, that number is what they're projecting, because I don't think Africa is like slowing down. There's no one-child law, so that it's projected to really grow rapidly. So so we have the youth workforce to produce. So for me, if I were talking to Africa's leaders right now, I would say your number one really focus should be, productivity. If you could be like China, just produce, right? That's where wealth creation comes in. So yes, financing initiatives that is about, processing goods, building capacity on the ground, and then connect. Part of the I think he actually, I'll just pause. He asked.
Yeah, actually, before I will comment, it's kind of, the name is Toyin from Singapore, and it's quite, timely that I heard you focus quite on cashew. If anybody is interested in learning more about cashew, Singapore is at an advanced stage of upstanding 50-hectare cashew plantation with the state government in the state. We're currently, putting some partnership arrangements together. So if you're interested, please let us know.
Okay, so I'll give a plug for you as well. Tolu is really on the move. He's based here in Chicago, but interestingly, he flew from Chicago to my Arkansas event and we never met. So he saw me on stage, he walked away, came back to Chicago, and then when he saw that I was here in Chicago, I was like, hello. I'm like, what? And he said, I just came from your event. I'm like, why didn't you introduce yourself? And he said, well, you were so busy, so I'm glad now. So Tolu has a lot of activities going on. I think he's already registered for Egypt. Yes, he went through the process. And you're traveling to Ethiopia, right? I made a connection for him as well. Someone on ground that would help him as he's traveling. So definitely network is somebody you want to talk to. Yes?
Yeah, so my question is this. The focus is on driving productivity and
But when you ask yourself a question, why these raw materials are taken to South Asia, the infrastructure now should be the target or the focus for now. But if you start doing this, how sustainable will it be? If you don't have electricity, you don't have this. Yes, you have the population, you don't have electricity, you don't have roads, things like that. Is that the reason why they are taking it? Can we focus on that first before we begin to develop?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that question in a very unique way. When people say Africa is poor, I say no. But what we've refused or we've not done is converting natural resources to man-made wealth. So what you and I consider as wealth today is man-made. Electricity, power, all the infrastructure stuff you said. Right? And because of that, that's why in Sierra Leone, and I've spoken to a diamond miner in Sierra Leone, and he told me the numbers. What it takes to bring a diamond out of the ground, I won't tell you, it's nothing compared to once it's done, you throw it to the global market stock, right? But guess what? You have people in Sierra Leone that literally can dig out diamond in their backyard, but do not have water in their tap in their house. Watch out that visual. The wealth is under the ground, right? So that infrastructure, we have to put it in context. The infrastructure has to be built. It has to be built by you and I, not somebody out there. We've got to get that. When we're talking about Africa, we need to start looking at ourselves. Because if people in this room cannot solve this problem, it's not people we left back home. So it's our responsibility as the diaspora. So I'm turning it back on you. No, yeah, there's no that person. Why are the leaders there? No. What, and I know you're doing a lot. So this is I'll talk about it a little bit if you don't mind. He went to school on a soccer sports scholarship. So when it comes to the sports industry, he's leading a conversation and connecting talents, soccer talents on the ground, and helping them access scholarships, working with coaches at very Ivy League schools in the US, and he's actually planning an event next year. So, so I know you're doing something, but I want us to start saying, personalizing that infrastructure, right? What can I do to build it? And pick a small place and let's start.
Very interestingly, it's just a follow-up from what he said and the conversation that he your response, and that line of conversation. So my thinking, and right from the start of this presentation, I was just thinking, if we're focusing so much on production, focusing so much on partnerships, if that infrastructure is missing, shouldn't that be the conversation? Shouldn't we be looking at each other and saying, hey, we know the problem is that resources is not a problem in Africa. There's no question about that. But we know that converting those resources to things that would be useful to build wealth is where the problem is. So if we focus on that, then we can actually start getting the train moving. And if that's the case, then where do we start that conversation? Who do we talk to? These kind of forums that we have, how do we map them out and structure them to actually address that wealth creation resource?
What I would say is it's not either or, it's both. And I know even the president of the bank is addressed this. This was how he answered it, and I'm paraphrasing. Even if we do not build any additional infrastructure today, the existing infrastructure can actually carry $1 trillion of trade. Okay, so it's not, as we look at it as parallel, right? Yes, we keep ramping up. What we already have today, let's keep creating access, yes. But we also have to address what you just said. So it's not this or that, but we need people thinking both needs to happen at the same time.
Yes. I wanted to talk about what you said and what you said and what you said. Why I agree with somewhere that is production of, that is putting out what products we have in the market. And what do we have? We have the natural resources. We have those things growing. You really don't need to do so much. Plant and it grows and you sell. We have the weather to produce this thing all year round. We have the proper storage infrastructure in place. We agree with all of that. Yes, we will do that. Yes, we need to be on the world map. Yes, we need to be out there and let everybody know what we can offer. We sell the product first. It will help us grow to a point where we will realize, having sold the product, this is not the only thing that we want to do. Because the market will get saturated at a point. When the market is saturated, how do we move? Where do we move? What's the next level? And that's when we move to, okay, we can now produce. We can now start doing the end product at our own end. It means now at that point we'll be able to say, okay, we can move to the next level. Yes, we know all of that. But let's backtrack. I'll use the Nigerian example and the oil industry. Oil was all gold for many years. World market prices crashed. We're crying. And then who says oil wells don't do good? Who says oil wells don't crack? So yes, these are natural resources. We don't boost them. We all depend on it. We don't believe in doing anything different. That's once it works, it becomes gold. We all sit on it and wait. So it's about mentality. While we will be the ones to make a change, we will try, we will make the best effort. A lot of other factors are there.
Oh yes, quite complex.
And she has mentioned the loan system. I will tell you, I know what happens on that side and on this side. Three things: the exchange rate, don't even go there. It kills you. You will get a Naira loan at 20-something%. Who does that? And then you will come and get a USD loan. I tell you, currently prime is at 4.something, 5% thereabouts. So you get a 5%, 6% loan plus some spread of maybe 1.5 or something basis point. It tells you, okay, funding is cheaper here, but hey, I have the CCI issues to deal with, the certificate of capital limitation. And then when I have to repay, I have to deal with exchange rate fluctuations. Even when you hedge, even when you have the best agreements in place, the banks look at you and tell you, you took a dollar loan, I want my dollars back. I have to
Yes, so number one, diversification. Every economy must diversify. That's a given. Nigeria failed at doing that. And they lost $30 billion of annual revenue from oil, just like that. So diversification. What you also talked about, there's something I say is the future, the political leaders must commit to the business community. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I have from the United States of America. No question the commitment the government has to small businesses. No question. In fact, as a wrap-up, we're going to have a representation from SCORE. There will be some flyers around small businesses in Illinois and some of the things they're doing. And once I start unraveling and connecting with them, like, these are the things the African government leaders need to know they need to do to support. A couple of weeks ago, I was also invited to speak with representatives of Botswana. I could just feel like there's so much energy in Botswana. The government leadership is absolutely committed to their business community. I could feel it in the room. So we need all of the things, some of the challenges you're facing is just part of doing business, but there's a whole lot of challenges that could be removed. So as part of the events I do host, we have policy leaders in the room and policy representatives to hear what you say and then to commit to us to say, what are you going to do to remove barriers to trade? So we're not going to address everything here, but I want to acknowledge that you're absolutely on point. These are all things we need to talk about, and particularly the forum and the platform I've created is for this. Because, when conversations happen in DC, it's political correctness. It's diplomacy, really. Everything is, you don't bring it up. But for me, in the business community, let's address the big elephants in the room and move from there. So thank you for sharing that. I want to really move. Coming in today, this was a presentation. But once I started talking to people in the room, I was like, okay, I'm going to adjust. So I've adjusted it and you're taking my time. So connecting, I'm going to speed things up because of lunch, but linking to market. So yes, when you produce. You know, one of the things I see in Africa is that the people in the rural areas, they're carrying the burden of feeding the people. They've done much more than they're being asked to. The gap is you and I. Because you cannot have a farmer produce plants and then have to worry about finding a market for those products. That should be on us. Because the way, I'll give you a scenario, the way the world works today, global market is 2019 buy from a buyer standpoint is already locked in. If I look at apparel, which I also was part of, the strategy for Walmart, but 9 months before 2019, everything that's going to be produced for 2019 is locked down 9 months prior. What it means is the person you just engage with will take that commitment to the bank, borrow, to finance that, and month by month by month. Nobody has the money anywhere, right? Like, money doesn't grow on trees, we know that. But there needs to be a commitment to buy, which is a guaranteed pay for the bank, really, right? That if I give you this, right, you're already expecting payment January because it's legally binding. And that's how the world runs and funds. And so at the end of the day, the manufacturer, what do they have to focus on? Production, quality, that's it. The same thing, farm. Future yields have already been committed. What does the farmer have to focus on? Just pray and say, rain, rain. That's all. But Africa, we don't have that today. The burden is all on the farmer. The burden is all on the producer. They're carrying the weight. So who's going to open the market to them? So some of the things we're doing, so there are two sides to my work. There's the public side of this type of conversation. But hey, you know, I turn around and I do exactly what I'm telling you to do in this room, right? So this is not talk. Talk is really cheap, but this is about executing on the strategy. So if you want to build a business around linking people to markets, right there. You don't even have to produce, just create a wonderful logistics infrastructure that helps people move their goods. They'll pay you for it. Distribution channels, transportation, services, payment, right? And then the bank is also saying they want to measure over the next 5 years, is this really successful? But like I said, even if the bank is doing what they can, if African Union is saying, okay, we all agree we want to trade, we want to move goods, and the bank is saying, yes, we'll support, we'll finance. What's the third leg of the stool? Business. Where are the business people that will make this happen? Okay, so let's watch out. It's not the bank. The bank is not the one they're there to support the business community. So that's why this for me was really music to my ears. Another amazing thing is Intra-African Trade Platform is going to be created. We're also going to digital. After the event, there's going to be a lot of digital activities going on. We'll be helping support that as well. Going to move quickly. Letters of credit. These are services. We talked about standards. Is it this page? Maybe it's the next standards. Harmonizing standards for trade, developing centers and working with the government. So once you partner with the African Union, all of a sudden, right, the government structure, the trade ministries, as part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, they now have responsibilities to harmonize standards and to abide by the rules of that agreement, which makes life easier. Again, this is evolving, but I'm just asking, let's listen, let's plug in, let's be a part of this. We do not have all the answers, but surely we have brilliant minds right here that can lend their voice and also help move this ahead. So in Egypt in December, what they've championed is to say one of the challenges is also visibility. if you say, okay, I want to trade, I want to be involved with African countries, the next thing is, where do I find who those people are? So visibility, transparency, all of those things. What the bank, the African Export-Import Bank has done is to now work with the African Union for each country to bring their best of the best. And they also did it in such a way that they're making it country pavilion, because if they just open and say, oh, this is a trade fair, come and showcase your goods, countries like South Africa is going to really dominate. I know. I'm giving you the recognition, I know. But then smaller countries may not, without the strength, may not be able to, represent themselves properly. So by going with the country pavilion, the country gets to bring their best and brightest business stakeholders. Target numbers for December event, it's a big one. 7 full days of trade show. There's also going to be conferences for that. African heads of state, targeting the $1 billion people on the African continent. They're expecting a lot of foot traffic. So, one, this is an opportunity. If you have good services that you want to put in front of the right people, this is an amazing opportunity to get in front of. If you wanted to go travel, yes, keep traveling, but when you have convened of all the key stakeholders, it doesn't get better than, right there in the room, being able to access those individuals that have traveled from afar. Target industries, really, this is a broad, it's open from sports to arts, music. There's actually a speaker who is a soccer player coming out of Europe. Music, like that's a huge opportunity coming out of Africa as well. So this is really a broad, stroke in terms of attracting as many players and from different fields as possible. One thing though, talking about infrastructure as well, are you familiar with Power Africa? Okay, so that's also a US government initiative from a power infrastructure standpoint and committing investments and funding into that space. In attendance, ministers, heads of states, diaspora, private sector. We also have some insights, right, that would help you from a navigation standpoint. I mean, this is, for Americans, this is bigger than the Super Bowl. I was waiting for the reaction there. It is. Okay, so anyway, I'll just click through some of the information here. Regional trade ops would also have their own pavilion. So they do recognize that, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, within their regions, East Africa, West Africa, they are key players, and they hold a wealth of information. They already trade strongly, so they're giving them opportunity to showcase separately as well as under the regional trade hub. And then Afro-Exim Bank would have a station that, they want you to be able to come there and all your questions, financing questions, right there. They want you to be able to get the answer right there. And if you have deals and you want to close, they'll have the right people there to help make this happen. Egypt being the host country, they get to get quite a significant space to showcase Egypt and to promote Egypt as well. And there's a conference when it comes to trade financing and payment conference. So as part of the fair, they're also going to be holding a finance payments conference. So I think that's something you should check out as well. And I'm wrapping this up, but I want to end with a final message from Ms. Kanayo, again, who is this event is really under our office. And I thank you so much for listening to me. I'm available to talk. You've made this very warm, so I went off script a little bit, so that's good. But please listen to the key message.
Our ultimate goal as Afexim Bank, and also in line with our current strategic plan, is to increase intra-African trade from $170 billion US to $250 billion US, and by so doing, ensure that intra-African trade share of Africa's total trade reaches 22% by 2021. Following the lessons that we will learn from holding the trade fair, and to ensure that those lessons are turned into tangible gains in pursuit of the fundamental objectives of intra-African trade strategy, Afexim Bank will continue to develop and implement solutions that will address the challenges facing intra-African trade. Against this backdrop, I would like to extend invitations to governments and parastatals, export trading companies, financial institutions, the private sector, academia, the creative industry, and all stakeholders on the continent and the diaspora to take up the opportunity to become our partners on this journey to transform Africa by joining hands to support and mobilize all those who need to be there and contribute to the success of the trade fair. Do not let this watershed moment pass you by. Be part of the movement to transform Africa. Be part of the IATF 2018.
Thank you so much. Thank you. They do have some special rates ending October, and it's just a short video about some of the offers. We can talk about that later, but again, really meeting the right people, getting in front of this conversation, engaging. One of the things I told the organizers was like, we in the diaspora were very comfortable. We're very comfortable, and that's the problem. No, it's the problem, it's the opportunity. But, so walking out of this room, I don't want you to go back to what you used to do. I want you to get more curious and more involved. And this is evolving as we speak. But for me, I'm committed to being a part of the growth. I'll take a few final questions.
So, first of all, who chooses in each country? Who is responsible for choosing those that are represented?
They're working with the ministry, so it's a governmental.
But then you can also register.
Oh yes, okay, yes. So to go visit as a delegate, as an attendee, it's actually a free access. If you wanted to go visit, and it's already completed the registration. I want to check this out, I just want to visit, but you go through this registration information. There's eye security involved, so they're going to get your passport information, all of that, like security clearance kind of thing. Once it's approved, that's it, right? Toyin?
Exactly.
Okay. So to go and explore and visit, it's free. Now to be an exhibitor is what I was just showing as well. That's where I'm trying to get off this. Okay, so that's where you get the space. You have to pay for the square footage and to display your goods or services. And then also for bigger players that want to sponsor, like brands like the Super Bowl, we also have some information for companies that want to really sponsor and get their brands out there to this great audience. Did that? Okay. One last question? None? Yay. Launch courtesy African Export-Import Bank, and coming out of launch, we're probably going to adjust time. Ms. Shakira here will be giving us a presentation about investing in South Africa. But let's take the full hour of launch, because there are some questions. I want some table discussions to go on. As you're having lunch, please get to know the people on your table, connect with them, because again, there are different stakeholders in the room that you can learn from. Thank you again. Have a great lunch.
Good day, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your lunch. I was so eager to speak to you that I couldn't wait until you finished your lunch. I wanted to say thank you so much to Toyin for providing the South African consulate with this opportunity to speak to you. It's always nice to come out to the suburbs. I'm usually stuck in downtown, which is a very exciting place to be, but I don't get to see much of the suburbs, so it was very nice that I'm in Oakbrook. The reason why I said to Toyin that I would love to be part of this event is because currently South Africa is going through so much of dramatic changes. And this is such an amazing opportunity for me to connect with yourselves and to tell you what our mandate and objectives are currently in South Africa. The first thing I would like to start by saying is that I'm one of just very few people from the Department of Trade and Industry that are based in the USA. In fact, I just have another colleague in Washington, so that's 2 of us for the entire USA. The resources are very thin because South Africa has taken a conscious decision to focus more on expanding our activity between South Africa and the rest of the African continent. So most of my colleagues are actually based in Africa and then other key high-growth emerging markets in Asia, for example. Having said that, the other thing that I would like to talk to you about, which is not part of the presentation, is an exciting development that occurred just yesterday. You all may have been following what has been going on in South Africa in terms of the changing of the guard, the appointment of our new president. And what's been happening is that President Ramaphosa, in the run-up to the elections, has been in a very concerted effort and drive to stimulate investment into South Africa and to change the narrative in terms of what has been happening over the past few months. And yesterday, our president launched an investment conference whereby over 1,000 people attended and announcements were made by several companies to invest or expand their investments inside of South Africa. The plan is to lure $100 billion and we are actually have been very successful in terms of our activity so far with that. I just want to read out to you the announcements that were made yesterday. And most of these announcements are by domestic companies. So one of the announcements is that Anglo American, a big mining company, intends spending $6 billion by 2022 on maintaining and expanding its mines in South Africa. Naspers, Africa's largest company, plans to invest $314 million in new and existing technology companies. Sappi, our paper and pulp producer, is planning a $528 million upgrade and expansion of one of their mills in South Africa. Actually, the list goes on and on and on in terms of the announcements that were made in different sectors. In the mining sector, in infrastructure-related activities, in telecommunications, in rubber, in pharmaceuticals, in renewable energy, and then in the automotive sector, and then lastly, the BRICS Development Bank. BRICS Development Bank is a bank that was formed by a coalition of the governments of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And the focus is to earmark $2 billion for different projects. A lot of those are infrastructure related. And then we love the fact that there's this exhibition and project by the Afrexim Bank, because South Africa is actually one of the partners, one of the 47 countries that are partners of Afrexim Bank. And in June of 2018, we announced the South African ECIC, Export Credit Insurance Corporation, together with Afrexim Bank, announced a $1 billion program, and that is to promote South Africa trade. And it's with $1 billion of financing to promote trade and investment between South Africa and the rest of the continent, to focus on trade transactions and projects, to offer co-financing and risk-sharing options, and in all other intra-African trade matters, which encompass technical cooperation, staff exchanges, research and development, joint events, and help. The focus is also on small and medium enterprises to enable them to join regional supply chains. And this, of course, is all in line with the strategy called Impact 2021 Africa Transform that Toyin has been talking about the past few minutes. So we have such a strong focus in South Africa on intra-African trade, on industrialization, and increasing our manufacturing for exports. And we have some stats here which will show over the past 10 years the increase in trade with Africa and the dominance of the African continent in terms of South Africa's trading patterns. But before I move on to that, Toyin also mentioned AGOA. And AGOA actually has 6,500 tariff lines, which encompass sectors like clothing and textiles, the pharmaceutical sector, the automotive sector, capital equipment, food, well, I would say fortunately, but unfortunately, the major beneficiary of AGOA out of all of the African countries is South Africa. But having said that, there's enough scope for all of the other countries to maximize on that potential, as well as for South Africa to maximize on that. We have a few years left, but it's so important to see how we can maneuver within that space, even given the recent tariff announcements, investigation announcements in the aluminum and steel sector by the US market. There still is so much of opportunity to focus on that. And my mandate is to promote South African business. So my mandate is to look at how South African companies can trade or by way of selling their products into the US market. And I also would like to support US businesses in terms of their investment projects that they would look into inside South Africa. So unfortunately, although I would love to support companies to sell their products to South Africa, for us, we want to focus on how we can grow revenue inside the African continent and inside South Africa, and how we can access those regional value chains within the African countries. The one other thing that I would like to mention, which I find very impressive actually, and have to go through a lot of my new notes here, because so much of new developments have been happening. South Africa and the role of South Africa on the African continent. South Africa actually has diplomatic representation in 47 out of 55 countries. And the latest office that we opened in Africa was in Bangui, in the Central African Republic, in June 2017. And the reason why we have made this conscious decision is that we know that in order for the South African economy to grow, we need our neighbors and the rest of the continent to grow with us. And we need to focus on those opportunities between our countries, and that will help us to eradicate poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Something really interesting, and I mentioned this earlier, is that in 1994, trade between South Africa and the continent was, in rand terms, 11.4 billion rands, but as of December 2017, it now stands at 420 billion rand. So that's a huge, huge jump. And the one advantage that we have trading with our African partners is that we export predominantly value-added products to the continent, as opposed to raw material, like you mentioned cashew nuts, that or other nuts. For us, our strength is macadamia nuts that we would export to the rest of the world. So we want to focus more and more on trade between our African partners because that's where the opportunity lies for both in terms of value added. We're not just selling our products to the rest of Africa. South Africa is also a major investor and growing growth and development in the region. It's a large contributor to FDI in sub-Saharan Africa. It's 298 billion rands worth of investment as of 2015. And it has been a variety and diversified range of investments, which includes investments in manufacturing, retail, communications, construction, finance, and tourism. So that is what I wanted to speak about. And I want to touch on a few things in terms of my presentation, particularly the focus on Africa. If you look at our trade composition, 26.3% of our exports are to the rest of Africa. Whereas in the past, it was to European countries, Africa now features and is predominant. South Africa, I think Toyin has spoke a lot about South Africa already, so I'm not going to go into the details and into the pitch of that. Just that we are going through such exciting times in South Africa. I'm not going to gloss over the challenges. We have a lot of challenges in South Africa. Our growth rate has declined. We have high unemployment rates. But with our new president, he was deputy president, but with our new president in place, he has gone into overdrive in terms of focusing on transformation of our state-owned enterprises, those that are responsible for electricity, energy, for infrastructure in terms of rail, and for other obligations. And we're looking at changing the landscape, reforming the landscape. So in addition to the transformation of the state-owned enterprises, we also have a newly announced finance minister who was our former minister of the Reserve Bank. And he also announced his budget speech a few weeks ago. And the focus is on infrastructure. And there is so much of investment that we are making into infrastructure-related projects. And despite, how much more time do we speak? Okay. Despite the focus on increasing our investment in infrastructure, we still rank very well in terms of our road, rail, and port facilities. We actually rank 10th globally in terms of kilometers of paved roads. And we have very busy ports, one of the largest dry bulk ports, which is in Richards Bay, and that's in KwaZulu-Natal, the province where I come from. And we have very busy container ports, Durban and Cape Town. We have recently announced the resumption of our renewable energy independent power producer program. So we have a lot of focus on diversifying our energy sources away from coal, focusing, for example, on collaborations with the private sector on wind and solar related energy. And then we also have a lot of airports. We have a huge domestic market. So for those of you who are looking to sell to South Africa, there is a big consumer market. But for those of you who want to partner with South Africa, which is what we are looking to focus on, we're looking for collaborations with US companies to look at opportunities in the rest of Africa. And that's in the field of services as well. And we're looking to see how also you can manufacture in South Africa and how you can then access those preferential trade agreements to export to the rest of the African continent. South African companies are so active in terms of their business dealings in the rest of the African continent. And the government has actually, since 2016, created a unit solely to focus on business with Africa. This unit is called Trade and Invest Africa, and it provides financial support and non-financial support for South African companies who are expanding into the rest of Africa. The non-financial support also includes market intelligence, research reports, business-to-business matchmaking. And the financial support is for marketing as well as for setting up production facilities. South Africa is so active in the different trade shows around the African continent. For example, there is a show called FILDA in Angola that we usually participate in annually. And I know that we have several businesses participating in shows as far as wide-reaching as in Tunisia and as close as to our neighboring countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So I cannot emphasize this point enough, why Africa is so important to us as South Africans. I want to go to number 19. So this is a snapshot of the different industries that South Africa has strengths in and that we are promoting and that we are looking for potential partners to invest in. And I have an example that I always use when I talk about collaboration between American and South African companies, and that is of LanzaTech. In South Africa, there are certain technologies that may not necessarily be available to us, and that's when we look at partnering with US companies. So a South African company has decided to invest in a huge plant in Mpumalanga, which is over here, and that is doing the conversion of waste to energy. They use some, and the technology that is being used is a technology from a US company, and that is called LanzaTech, and they have licensed their technology, and that then enables us to do manufacturing and industrial activity in the province of Mpumalanga, which results in a lot of job creation and the conversion of waste to energy. And I don't have the chemical equation for this. However, it uses biomass, and the biomass is taken from the gut of a rabbit. So that's really interesting because it's so interesting how we find efforts to collaborate between the US and South Africa, which will result in something of benefit to South Africa and consequently to the neighboring countries as well. I would like to brag a bit about the province that I come from. I come from KwaZulu-Natal, and that is on the east coast of South Africa. If I were to imagine any state or any city in the US that has similar climate and terrain, I would say it's similar to Miami. So being in Chicago, I think it's more similar to Pretoria, Gauteng. But Gauteng is very dynamic. It's regarded as the business capital. Pretoria is the capital, and Johannesburg is the business capital. And I think the skyline of Chicago reminds me of the skyscrapers in Gauteng, of which we have a high level of tourists and business, and we have such a diverse amount of nationalities visiting and setting up their headquarters from all over the world in Gauteng. We have several opportunities in various sectors. We would like to focus a lot on agriculture and agro-processing. And something that we do very well is that we produce tea, but it's not tea that is a common black tea. It's something called rooibos tea, and I think that all of you know of it, but in the US it's called redbush. Yes. South Africa actually has geographical index patenting in terms of that. Like, everybody who uses rooibos is supposed to call it rooibos. It's like champagne or other wines where they have geographical index, even cheese. So we have asked for that for rooibos because it's unique to South Africa, and it apparently has greater antioxidant properties than green tea. So that's interesting. And we have a lot of other subsectors in the dairy sector, in the fruit juice sector, in soy, and other indigenous plants and herbs. I don't know if, and I'm addressing the women mainly, Have you ever heard of something called hudia? Hudia? So hudia is actually a plant that grows in the desert. And we say the people who live in the desert, they chew on that plant and it helps them to burn kilojoules and lose weight. So many American companies have been sourcing hudia and repackaging in the US. But we have a lot of South African companies that adhere to good manufacturing practice standards and are capable of selling it directly to the US and other countries. So we also have a huge, I will touch on not every subsector here, but we have a huge manufacturing sector. We have all of the original equipment manufacturers that are located either in Rossland, Gauteng, or the Eastern Cape, in our special economic zones, including BMW, Daimler Chrysler, Ford, GM, which withdrew for other reasons, but we have about 8. European as well as Chinese and Indian. So one of the other things that we would like to focus on is fuel cells production. And I must say that if you have heard of Algar National Laboratory here in Illinois, there's been a lot of collaboration in terms of research and development regarding manganese and lithium for fuel cells and energy storage. And I was so happy to have spoken to somebody in the sector of business process outsourcing, because that's also a very strong industry that we promote in South Africa. We've won numerous awards for that, and we have many multinationals who have used our services as a call center, offshoring center location. Something that I should have mentioned at the beginning is that we also have a strong film industry, and I'm actually hosting our deputy minister as soon as Monday, when we will be participating at the American Film Market in Los Angeles. And we are bringing with us 12 emerging black-owned film producers, one of whom will be screening his movie called Nummer 37. That's number 37 in Afrikaans, one of our official languages. And he will be screening that next week in Los Angeles. And we have a history in South Africa of a lot of financial incentives that we provide to companies to look at pre- and post-production filming opportunities in South Africa. And so if I'm stuttering or stammering, it's because my mind is focused on my deputy minister's imminent arrival in Los Angeles, which there's a lot that still has to be done. So the African continent offers a myriad of opportunities, and why is this so? If you look at the different sectors and subsectors, Africa has 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. That is an immense opportunity for people to look at the agricultural sector and the food processing sector. And look at, Toyin had in Arkansas coffee producers, American companies who ventured into Africa. And they have such a profitable business now because they took the risk to invest in Africa. So there are so many more opportunities in that sector. In the mining and minerals beneficiation sector, Africa is a major player. Most of the resources are available and come from Africa. In South Africa, we may not necessarily have oil, but we have basically everything else. We have platinum, diamonds, coal, vanadium, chromium, just a whole platinum group metals. So there are so many opportunities in terms of beneficiation. And then we are still exploring offshore and onshore gas opportunities, and we have Mozambique, which is rich in that. And there are huge development opportunities in Tanzania. And then in manufacturing, there are so many opportunities in terms of accessing those value chains. It's food processing and beverages, minerals beneficiation, forestry, clothing and textiles, footwear, and the list goes on and on and on. In terms of infrastructure, Although I mentioned the investment that South Africa is making in terms of its own infrastructure, there are still many projects that we are doing across countries. And actually, there are a lot of opportunities to collaborate with US companies on projects in the African continent. Mention was made of OPIC, but besides OPIC, we also have the name, the USTDA, because they provide funding to American companies to look at, for example, renewable energy projects and to provide services in that field in South Africa. And there are many US companies that are currently partnering with South African companies for projects in South Africa and the rest of Africa. So again, I spoke about partnerships, and I believe that partnership is the most important thing that needs to happen for everybody to be successful. And we are not just saying partnership and not offering anything. We are offering financial incentives for that as well. This is a new presentation, so I can't find that slide, but I can talk to you about it. South Africa currently has various special economic zones. Here we are. And these special economic zones offer to all sizes of companies a reduced corporate tax rate if you locate within those zones, and a value-added tax and customs duty suspension because it's a customs-controlled area. We offer incentives for employment. We offer a building allowance, as well as preferential land rental and utility rates. So if you locate there, you will get access to a cheaper rate of land and a cheaper utility rate, which is an amazing incentive. And we also help to facilitate your entry into those zones. So this is such a great opportunity to look at manufacturing in South Africa and then selling to other African countries, of which in some cases we have zero to minimal duties for your US product. I also have a list of incentives and support that the Department of Trade and Industry offers to companies who would like to source from South Africa or produce in South Africa. And there is a website called, and I hope it's here, Invest SA. I can share that website with all of you. But it's very exciting times currently in South Africa. We had a lot of challenges over the past few months, especially in the beginning of the year. But right now, our president really is in overdrive. I cannot emphasize that enough. And we are so happy to engage with those companies that would like to buy South African products. Thank you very much.
Wow, can you please help me thank out of that very busy schedule, right? She's super busy, and I can't thank you enough for being here and sharing with us. So have you learned something new today? Yes. We're gonna take a short 10 minutes break. I know we kind of interrupted your lunch, so we'll take a short 10 minutes break and I'll come back to wrap up. Thank you. So the leader there, Keith, he might be on his way, but one of the things is these are volunteers and services available to your business here in Chicago. So check them out, SCORE Chicago, SCORE, and they're part of the Small Business Administration, and they offer volunteer services. As I'm wrapping up, remember, going into Egypt, if you want to go into Egypt as an attendee, you go through the online website. There are special rates going on right now. From a visa standpoint, I actually met with the Consul General of Egypt and his team. They have a consulate here in Chicago, so they can help you walk through that process. So thank you so much once again. I will be sending out a survey out. I really would love to get your feedback. And also learn, what are you going to take away? What's your takeaway from this event? And what are you doing next? And how can we be of service and help? So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here. We so much appreciate you. Have a great, great, great rest of your weekend. Thank you.